Please subscribe to help you and your motorcycle perform better.
Dave Williams, editor here with today's video, the Cordona Quick Shifter. Dave Moss's new ZX6R 2019 came with a quick shifter, stock, OEM, off the showroom floor. The trouble is, it only works with a street shift pattern. When you switch the lever, the shift lever, to operate in race pattern so that it upshifts when you push down on it, the quick shifter doesn't work. Hence, the Cordona Quick Shifter.
All right, so we are looking at fitting a quick shifter to the bike to replace the OEM one that we had to lose because it would not work in the way we needed it to. Let's see what we get. So first of all, let's get all these bolts out of the way. Two, and then this one has to have those removed and unclipped to get to that. Okay, that's out. Now we need to loosen this just a little bit. Okay, that's good. Now take the bolts off the tank here. So that's done. Now the tank will lift. That bracket comes out. We'll slide that off the overflow tube and get rid of it. That gives us a bit more space here. So underneath, we've got to find out now what we've got for quick release. So we've got our fuel pump lead disconnected. We have a quick release on that side. And we have a vent tube on this side, which is what that is, that's really tight right now. So there's a vent tube there. This will stay attached. So the first thing to remove then is this. So then, can we get these off? There. And do it that way, so that's easier. Now this tube should pull. There it goes. We don't want to lose the clip. Put the clip on the table with the parts. We will get our trusty old Suzuki tank holding tool in place. Don't like that. Let's put it there instead. That feels a little more stable. Okay. That's got, looks like it's got two little red clips on the top, which are holding it in place. So if we push those 2 feet apart, the red clip piece looks like it comes down. So the first task is to get that to move. So can we make that loose? Again, working blind because I can't see. This is all feel. So that one feels like it's down.
Yeah, it came out.
Now the other one. There it is. Okay, so that's down. My question is, does it come off? And it doesn't feel like it. So then, usually you squeeze these in, and then that disconnects the fuel line. We should probably move the light in case it gets hit with fuel. There's that. Okay, so at this point the fuel line is free.
Momento o trutho.
Okay. Those are all Phillips screws.
Technically JRIs, we know.
Not
Jeez.
quite right. JAS.
JAS, whatever.
So that's a sensor, and it looks like that's all hard and intact and shouldn't move. So when we pull the lid, we need to find out where that's connected and if it needs to be unscrewed. So that's loose. And I've never seen under the airbox either on any of these bikes because I've never owned one. So all this is discovery for me as well in figuring out what we're heading into. So that's all exciting stuff. And we're doing it old school with no power tools. Okay, that's all of that. Now,
No power tools, no safe spaces.
that's off.
Old school.
Don't know that I can see where that connects to. No, I can't. Okay, so, that's whatever sensor that is. That's fine. But there is a attachment there, which is a Phillips screw. And I don't know if that is a fitting that will or will not come out, so I'm not going to try it. Obviously, if I unscrew that, the whole thing comes out, which would be nicer than having the lid dangling everywhere. So, let's go ahead and remove it. Okay. Right, so we have one fastener there, and we have no fasteners there, and no fasteners around here. We have oil collector there, breather tube, which needs to go. So in that case, because there are holes through the frame here, I'm guessing that we go right there. And if Dave can see underneath, there are double clamps. So, right under there are the double clamps. So there's a screw on each end, undoes that nut, this whole thing will come up. So those holes on the frame are specifically for those clamps to loosen them off. So 10 mil first. That is a massive airbox. Jeez. More air, more power.
Cheese and rice.
Okay, that's staying there. No. No. Allen. Let's start with a 4. No. Okay. Let's grab a 3.
That seems tight.
Yep, 3 mil Allen. All about weight saving, don't forget. Okay, that's out. That's loose, sorry. Where am I? I can't see. Right. There.
There it is.
Okay, so that's got those points of contact loose. I don't think I have the physical strength to do it by... Oh, I might. I should not second guess myself.
If you weren't such a wimp, rugby wimp.
Let's bring that around a little more.
Oh, I have a rugby injury.
Wow, that's stuck on there. Yikes. Okay. All right. Now, this should technically
Lift right off.
Okay, so it's moving, it's free here. I don't see any other attachment points. So now it's just that it's sitting, yep, exactly, it's just sitting. There it goes. Okay.
Job done. Big holes.
Okay, so next,
Protect those holes.
all right, so according to the instructions, we are looking for a common wire, and the common wire is interpreted as the color. So we have red black, we have red black red, we have red black orange, and we have red black green. So the common color is red. The common color is on the left hand side. So according to our instructions, common color on the left hand side is a non-standard ignition. So we verified that, which is fine. So if that's the case and we have a non-standard ignition, then we have to use this format with the Cordona. So we have to install our adapters to these two wires in order to make sure that we do this correctly. And sure enough, what does it say up there? Kawasaki ZX. So the paperwork matches, the diagrams match, the bike matches. So all of that in terms of the instructions is flawless. Okay, now we're at this stage, we can see what we've got. So first thing is routing. So let's pull this back a little bit because we're not too worried about dust. We have a lot of clean space through here along this side, down the frame, under the subframe, and all the way back. On this side, we've got the main harness here. There's still plenty of space to run something down and around, but here is all blocked off with the end, the cables and everything else. So routing wise, it makes much more sense for us to go ahead and set it on this side and run it. This is the end that's going to attach to the Cordona ECU, which is going to sit roughly up here because it fits perfectly. So I'm going to run this under, through there. I'm going to keep it coming on this side of the bike. Now, it's going to put a lot of strain if I go through there and up, but if I go this way, unfortunately, we have just enough space. If I go that way, I've got a nice clean shot at this point straight to the ECU. So that's nice. That can go this side. We've plenty of room here. So now let's keep everything out of the way. Get that ground wire out. We can go ahead and send this through there. We'll move this airbox sensor out and around now. And now all our wiring can sit up front. According to the diagram, on these two wires, we need to use these X leads. So in that case, because we know we have a non-standard ignition, these have to have these attached. And these go to and match the shortest part of the wiring on the harness. So our harness comes up here and goes across. So number 1 is the shortest part. So these wires need to clip into number 1. So number 1 is out. So that goes in, and that goes over. So that takes care of that. Now we need to look at the rest of the harness. So if we follow the harness, we have to go in length of line. So 4, 3, 2. Because we're putting it together, knowing the X goes to number 1 is no problem at all. So this would be number 2. That will be number 3. And this will be number 4. We know where to go to. So number 2, off. So plug in there.
The plugs are idiot proof.
And then this wire wants to go underneath. So every time I do this, I'm taking a great deal of care to wire it correctly so the wiring flows naturally. So that one's done, that one's done. Now, next one is number 3. That's coming out here, so we'll let that come. Number 3 off. Plug that one in and plug that to the coil. And turn that around a little bit to give us some more room. And then lastly, number 4. Now you can see we're aggregating tons and tons of extra wire here. So at that point, what we've got to do is, when we figure all this out, tidy this wire up, because it can't be sitting everywhere, nor can it get crushed under the airbox. So number 4 off. Click and click. Looking at this, that's about where we need it to be in either direction. So that fits perfectly there. So our job now is to tidy all of this up. The airbox still has to go on top of all of this, so we need everything to fall into spaces where there's nothing currently. So the X's can go there, X leads can go there. There's not enough room on either of these two to sit anywhere, so they can sit on top of the coils. And then the other part is, this has to be connected with a tube because we took off the evaporation system. So that can still sit underneath it. That's coming out, that can sit in there. So again, if we just take a minute to take a look at the way things lay out, the way it will settle in becomes readily apparent. So now we've got all of that, plus this looping. That can go down in that gap, down there. That can spin around a little more, which gives us that gap for this. So that's nice and tidy. That's nice and tidy. So all we've got left to do now is zip tie those together to anchor them to something else, like here. And then everything is flat and even. And when we put our tube straight across here, this is all immaculate, tiny, no issues whatsoever. Again, we're not trying to make these tight, we just want it to fit. So what have we got left? That's all part of the harness. That is all sitting down and in. That can stay there. It's going to be held down by the airbox. There's nothing to worry about there. Then do I need one more zip tie through here? I'd say no, because it's all resting nicely. So let's nudge this up a little bit. That's good. So, all right, so now that all that's nice and tidy and everything's set, we have 2 additional things here. So we've got a 2-pin and we have a 3-pin. We have our quick shifter assembly, and that is a 3-pin. So we've got to see which way around it goes, and it goes that way. So that goes in and clicks into there. Now we have a ground wire. This is going to go to the ground, which is this side with the black wire. So we'll figure out how much we need to push this back in order to get that on there with very little stress. And then this, we have nothing to plug into this in the kit. So this is a bat wing, as it's called, accessory, so that you can do lots of other things with your quick shifter, which we will not be doing with this installation. So this will stay empty for now. The bat light is out. We are not calling for bat wing accessories. Probably go ahead and zip tie that in position here so that all of that sits correctly like this. We've got plenty of room for ground up here, so that's perfect. A couple of zip ties. So through and around. Again, we're not going to make these tight because it's electrical wire, so just snug. That's snug. Cut that. One more wire for here. Bring that up. And we'll keep the ground wire on top. So again, it's got a nice, clean, easy run. Okay, so this tells you and gives you all your display for kill time and everything else. And it also shows you that you are powered up and everything is working properly. So, question is, where do I want to mount this so I can see it? So, I've got a couple spaces, right? I could see it there, but that's under the tank and I have to lift the tank, so that's not going to work. So then we want to go under here and then bring it up that way. So let's go ahead and set that in that way. Bring that through this side. We'll get this out of the way, and that will end up being down there, so it is completely out of the way. We want it facing this way so we can see it, so then the quick shifter part of the wiring going to it needs to go on this side, so we'll give it enough free space. So that looks nice and neat. And then as far as the quick shifter goes, we can run that down over here. Whoops, get rid of that breather tube. We can run it over the top and then keep the wiring up here so it's nice and clean. We've got no stress on the connection here running through to our display. Get it all neatly bundled up with zip ties. That has a ton of room down here. So I think for the layout piece, we're in really good shape. So now it's back to good old faithful and trusty zip ties. All right, next job. This can go in one of two positions. It can go back here, which makes no sense at all, and it can go up here, which makes the most sense. You can never put these in the middle. They have to go at one end or the other. So in that case, like we said, we've got a ton of extra cable, which we'll deal with in a while. We're not going to deal with that right now. So what we're looking at then is a rod combination, plus we've got all our fittings on the bench here to make some kind of cocktail to get that plus a rod into and putting this back in the right position. So in the package, it tells us you get 2 right nuts. Don't take that the wrong way, nothing personal, and 1 left nut. But what that means is reverse threads. Now, the beauty of the system is that with the Cordona, no matter whether you put the left thread in this end or the right thread in this end, it takes both. So they call it magic threads. So you can do either or. So now we have to find the correct nut for this, because one's the right and left. That's the wrong one. That's the correct one. So we're going to screw this all the way in and bottom it. So it's fine. Right. Now in this case, this is going to thread into here. So if that threads in, we want a lock nut on this side and a lock nut on that side. So now we have to find the other left nut from the other package. Nope. Yes. So we'll put those equidistant. So we're going to bottom the threads out on this side. There's the bottom. We're going to mark it. Then we'll leave this here. Now we've got to screw that in. Okay, so barely anything, maybe half a turn. Okay, so that's fine. Let's line it up with the foot peg where we need it, and let's line that up with that. So if that's the same on this side, and we get about that gap, the shift is going to be roughly in the same position. So now we need to find the thread for this one, which should be one of these two, because we already used up the left. Nope. Doesn't matter which end it is. Nope. Try that. Nope.
We have 2 more to try.
It's going.
Oh, there we go.
As we have everything off and apart so we can put it together, there's a routing concern here. So if we want GP, that's got to go on the top. This has to go here, which means
I can't see it. Okay.
That's going to sit like that, which means the wiring is actually going to rub on the frame. So routing that this way makes no sense at all. If we invert it and put it on that way, the wiring is free and clear, can get zip tied anywhere and just be held perfectly in place with no risk of rubbing. So we're going to go ahead and mount the Cordona that way. So at this point, what we need to do now is put all this together externally, and we're going to bottom everything out all the way and see what we've got left for position for the lever for my foot. So again, all this is dry fit, nothing's Loctited, nothing's ready yet. We're just doing all this discovery. So that's correct, and it's bottomed out there. Okay, so that's going to sit like that. Now we need our shift rod. Let's move that all the way up. We'll bottom this one out. Okay, that's bottomed. So we've got to get everything lined up. So that goes on here. So we're in there. Now we've got to bring this around and behind to the bolt for the heim joint and hold it still. And with everything bottomed out, we've got the shift angle we're looking for to start with. The wire is free and clear. The wire wants to route inside, but it looks like it will be better not to have it crossing. So let's take that off, put the wire on the inside and do it that way. There we go. Like that. Much nicer. We can even have it just come straight up this way if we want to, So either way, whichever makes the most sense. If you want it there, that's nice because you can zip tie it here and hold it in position and keep it there. So whatever you want to do is up to you. And then as far as my angle here, with everything bottomed out, with the middle rod they sent, I am free and clear and everything can proceed. So at this point, we need to put everything back together, tighten everything up against each other so that it's all locked solid, and then we can go back to the top of the bike and continue on from there. Continuing on with our Star Trek Discovery. Next is to see if this is appropriate. We don't have the Red Angel here to save us, so what we've got to do is see if this is impaired. Now if you look here, there's impressions, and those impressions come from these. Now around those impressions, these sit in here. So the question is, with the routing of this being here, is it going to get pinched? And if we pull that there and push down, that is still free, but as soon as you push it to lock it, it's still free. So the question is, over time, is that going to fray this and kill the quick shifter? So the easy thing to do is say, let's play the safe game here, take that out, bring it back up here, and do it this way. We've got enough free play for it to go here, and there's really not that much of a pull on the ECU with that angle. So at this point, now we have to secure the ECU somewhere in this spot. So this is a perfectly natural fit for it right here, going in backwards and sitting on top of the rubber right there. So if we were to put Velcro on both sides of the rubber, there's enough expansion room for it to sit together and be firm, but we can't go any further back here to route it in this area because there's no flat space, so that's out. We can't come further forward because we've got the seat that sits there. We can't put this on top of all our other ECUs because of that ridge. It won't get back here. It's stuck, so we can't put it there, and again we've got the seat coming through. So the only place we can really do this is right here. So at that point, there's two questions. One, is the rubber friction enough to keep it there and just hold it in place so that we can go ahead and put the connector to it and be finished? So it's not going to move around a lot, but obviously it can. So we do need to secure this, and the Cordona supplies us with Velcro for both sides. So at this point, this piggyback ECU is held in place on top of the main ECU by this bracket of rubber. So we can't remove this. So we're gonna have to put the Velcro piece on top of it and on here as well. And at that point, the goal is to push it in as one complete unit and then sit it and press it and hold it in place. Let the Velcro take to the rubber, then we've got what we need. Then we'll go ahead and attach this to complete the installation, other than deciding what we're going to do with our shift wire from the sensor as to what we're going to do with that. But that's a finish item at this point. It's not required right now. Negative that way.
But let's never be negative. We're always positive.
First on, last off. And then we have our ground wire that's going to come over the top. Might go out the side actually, looking at that. Yeah, we'll just kick it off at that angle. Okay. 1, 2. Yeah, that'll work nicely just like that. Okay.
Will it explode? Stand by. Fire in the hole. We lived.
it tight.
This clips underneath in the open spot here into there. So easiest thing is to push this on first. Bring that around that way so we've got the right spacing. There it is. So clip it in first, click, bring it in, second click, done. Then take this and route it into there, which is nice and easy, neat and tidy, and it keeps everything out of the way. Before I button the tank down, just in case we have to lift it because the seat is quick to pull. Yes, we love that sound. So fuel primed, so the fuel pump's fine. Router fuel, which was deliberate simply because I knew the tank was coming off. The quick shifter will flash, KQS, if you've got the quick shifter reversed because it's not working. So it'll flash whether you've got a system like ours on with the Cordona or you've gone to GP, it'll flash all the time. Until you break into the ECU with whatever program you're going to use, that will constantly flash. So that's nothing to worry about. The next piece of the instructions is that do not connect the quick shifter, which is unconnected at this point. So it says turn the ignition on. We should see either 3 zeros or the version number. So we see 0.0.
But we saw 1.0 for a moment.
So that is all correct. Now it says start the engine. So clutch in. We are in neutral. Yes. Start engine. And we should see our RPMs. Okay. Stop the engine. Now connect the strain gauge quick shifter under the tank. So there's the first piece, and the second piece is dangly down there. It's almost done. It doesn't feel like it's fully clipped yet. Yes, that's clipped now. The clip's in place. Next stage. Quick shifter is plugged in. We have our display here. We have our RPM there. So the next quest is to start the bike in 6th gear, get it up to about 2500 RPM. As I am in GP shift, push down on the shifter and a red light should pop up right in that corner. Right up there. So at that point, the beep says it's getting the signal that you're pushing down, that it should be killing the motor. So at this point, let's check that we get that and the beep combined. The instructions require that you put it in 6, you pull the clutch in, you go to 3000 RPM, and then you test. Well, I am not from the Umbrella Academy. I'm not sure what that character was with all the arms. And Dave has to film. So we are going to put it in 6th gear and let it roll in 6th gear, so that we can check the kill time for the purposes of showing you the video, because we just don't have enough hands. Fire in the hole. Dash confirmed 6th gear. So now we're going to let it clutch out slowly. RPM's up, and then we're looking for the dot. There it is. There's the kill time. So if you don't get it over 3000 RPM, you won't get the kill time. Aha! So we've already now know that kill time works. 6th gear is easy because you're pressing for 7th and it doesn't hurt the gearbox. So at that point, we know the kill switch works and the timing of the kill switch works on kill time. So the next thing we can look at is sensitivity. So again, we need a situation of a third person because we're doing this for you. So the next step is to hold both these buttons down and turn the ignition on. Now, that sets your shift pattern. So I let go, and as soon as I let go, because I'm doing GP, I'm going straight down, and I've got to hold it for at least 2 seconds while it flashes up. You'll hear a beep, but stay there just because you can, and then let it go. So you just set with the ECU that your upshift is a pull direction. So that's what that was for. So the computer now knows I am in GP shift, and that is going through the gears. That is an upshift. So we've taught the computer that. Now next is the sensitivity level. So I can push that down, and it's got the number 11. Because we were smart and played with this beforehand, 11 equals kilograms of force to make the shift, and it came programmed at 15. So if I want to change that, I hold both buttons down, it'll flash. Now if I want to go up, right, 15, hold both, wait. There's your quick. I don't want that number, so while we're flashing, we'll bring it all the way back down to 15. Now we've got to push them together, wait for the flashing to stop, and that is our pounds per force of shift force on the rod to make it happen. So that's what that number means. We have functionality in here as well. We have buttons just the same as we did on our component here to set the shift pattern, as well as, sorry, that's not correct, to set the down GP shift as more power, and then set the kilogram force. So just the same here, the display's there and the buttons are there. So there are various levels within each one, and some are a little more complicated than others. So
you can't use that finger, you gotta use your thumb.
First one is on 3. What that means is when the RPMs reach 3000 at this point, the quick shifter will work. So we can change that from anywhere up to 9,000 RPM. So let's do that. Let's hold it. On 3, then you have to push both together, which is a little challenging. There we go. Now I want it on at 5,000, not 3. So 3, 4, 5. Now it'll keep blinking, and when it goes off, it'll memorize. Ah, it didn't. So that's good to know. There it is. On now, the quick shifter won't kick on until 5,000, but your maximum value for that is 9. That 13.5 is our RPM rev limit. Yay! So we're going to go ahead and set this to 16,000. So it's way above the ceiling that we'll be riding the bike at. 8, 9, 16. What that means is the quick shifter will allow the quick shifter to operate through the ECU up to 16,000 RPM. I start at 5 and I end at 16 as the usable functional window for the quick shifter to operate. So that's what we just set. Now, when we're on the dyno, if we find that the rev limiter on this is higher than 16,000, I can then go pre-program it. And in talking to Cordona yesterday, they said the ceiling for this is 20,000 RPM. If you wanted to, and you wanted to work at all times, this bike red lines out on the clock at 18. You could set it at 18 because it's never going to reach there. And so you don't have to worry about exceeding your RPMs. It will always shift no matter where you are after the start point of 5. So you can choose what you want for the ceiling, for the limit, for the quick shifter to work via the ECU. Okay, next is T, which is kill time. And that's set at 80 milliseconds, and I want to have it at, I usually go between 55 and 50. So T80 kill time. Getting better. So we want to go down to 55. If you hold it down, you can go faster. 3, 4, 5.
Set it at 56.
Oh, 56? Okay, I can't see. I'm just going blind on this one. So on the next one, after T, for time, so kill time is, yep, set at 56. Next one is ST4. So there are two versions here. You have a 4-stroke and a 2-stroke. So there's two options, and we're a 4-stroke. So we're staying with ST4. The next one is AOF. So this is automatic shift. So what the ECU has is the capability when you're drag racing for you to preset your RPM, preload the shifter, get off the line, leave your foot on the shifter, and then at a preset RPM, it'll shift. Then you release, re-preload again, and then as soon as it hits that RPM, it'll shift again. So we have that option off because we are road racing. So we're not going to keep our foot constantly on the shifter and go in a straight line. So it doesn't make any sense. So you have A on or A off. In this case, of. So we know that we're not using the drag racing option. Then the last one is in 1, and in means inputs. So in this case, as we have a non-standard system, according to Cordona's paperwork, we have the X, and the X went on the very first cylinder, which is number 1. But it can also pick up from coil number 2, so you can select 1 or 2, and that's your only option there. So with the ECU, you have various options in which you can change a lot of stuff. We don't need the engine running, we can just have the key on, go through and work the programming. And for me, it's going to be easy to just pull the tail off, pull the seat out, and it's right here. So it would be nice to have had it here where I just pull the seat off and put it there and do it that way. And maybe in time, I might relocate it here like this, so I can get to the buttons right there and not take the tail off, but we'll see. Process of time always makes you fine-tune everything, right? So at this point, we're going to stick it here and see where we go. That gets everything programmed with the Cordona shifter. Now it's up to me to get to the track and then go test everything. And if I need to change parameters, then I'm going to obviously use what I've got here for that. The only thing I'm going to change here is how much kilograms of force I'm going to use on our display here to make the shifter work. As I'm very, very precise in what I do, it's a low kilogram force. If you're clumsy and your coordination isn't quite as quick and accurate and your shifts aren't quite as positive, or in other words, they're a little bit lazy, then you'll need a little more force. But you'll figure that out over time. So now it's put it back together and get to the track and get to do some testing.
Schedule a remote tuning appointment for you and your bike with Dave via text, email, Facebook, etc. Contact Dave on Facebook or by email, dave@davemosstuning.com.